Hansen's disease or leprosy today. Leprosy in the Bible encompassed a lot of diseases. The best definition I heard, I feel like it was Ron last week, said any skin illness. That is, or let's not say any skin illness, they are all skin illnesses. That's the best definition, because it's not one type like leprosy today is. It's many types of skin illnesses. The Hebrew word tazarat, as I was making this PowerPoint, it kept changing the word leprosy to tazarat, because leprosy is not a great translation when we think of leprosy today. It's a more generic word. That's a more specific word. So you don't have to memorize the Hebrew word, but my PowerPoint kept thinking it was a better word and kept changing it back every time I would make it leprosy. So the PowerPoint thought it knew better than me. Our English versions are going to say leprosy, though. So leprosy, think of generic, not specific. And we looked at, I think we covered verses 1 through 8 about people with leprosy and how to know if they had leprosy. Now we're going to get into how to deal with leprosy. Once someone has been, how we know if someone has it, how to deal with it. First of all, a swelling in the skin, verses 9 to 17. And I'm telling you, I have pages upon pages upon pages for these lessons, but we're going to kind of go at a fast pace because I don't think we need to memorize every detail of leprosy today. They did. They needed to memorize every detail of this. But for us, I think we more need to study it and then come away with some applications and keep moving. Harley.
They needed to, not for religious purposes altogether. It was a feared disease.
That's right. That's right. And our final thing in chapter 13, I spoke what I had studied a week or two ago about this. I'm going to clarify tonight that I could be wrong. There is leprosy in houses that we're going to see at the end of the chapter. And what I said last week was, and some people believe this, I'm going to give both points of view, that what they meant by that was something that looked like leprosy when you see it on your house. But today we would define it as mold or something like that. That is most people's consensus, and even the NIV version, I think, has changed it to mold there. But I heard a different point of view today, and that was that there was actual leprosy of the house. In other words, the skin disease was being carried by the house. And which sounds silly until I thought about it a while. There are skin diseases, there are illnesses you can catch from being on cloth and on things like that. When we first got back to America and traveled the United States for 2 months, we all caught, if they were in here, they would know the word. I don't remember. We all caught that skin illness, and it can very easily travel on sheets. And so if you don't scourge your sheets and just burn them as hot as you can, you'll just keep catching it over and over and over. So skin illnesses can sometimes get onto furniture and houses and things. So it could be a leprosy or a skin illness that maybe we don't even have today that could travel by house. It could be mold, which is the way the NIV chooses to translate it. Because we don't live them, we don't know for sure. But there are skin illnesses that can travel on cloth. I know Kathy Schnell told me that she every week just burns her sheets as hot as she can get them to make sure they don't catch illnesses in their family, being a nurse.
And I have read, not biblically, but that period in history, that it was not uncommon that a person be put in a prison cell and over a period of time may contract.
Yeah.
And they would go in and set fire inside the cell.
Wow.
Killing
Yeah. Yeah. Harley was saying that there was a time period where a prisoner would go into a prison cell without leprosy and catch leprosy from the cell. And so they'd have to come in and burn the cell, burn everything in it to heat it enough to kill the leprosy. Unrelated to that, but there are illnesses at colleges that tend to do things like that, where they have to come in and just heat the dorm room as hot as they can and try to kill the illnesses.
So is leprosy mostly caused by an internal source from your body, and not necessarily an external source like poison ivy, poison oak? Would that be considered? That's not necessarily a disease of the flesh. But
It is always transmittable. So I would say it's probably more internal source compared to like a poison ivy. However, it is transmittable, so you can pass it to someone else. What's the word for that? Viral? Something like a viral type illness that we would think of today. Good questions. All right, verses 9 to 17. When a man is afflicted with a leprous disease, he shall be brought to the priest, and the priest shall look. And if there is a white swelling in the skin that has turned the hair white, and there is now raw flesh in the swelling, it is a chronic leprous disease in the skin of his body. And the priest shall pronounce him unclean. He shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. Okay, if he was clean, the priest would shut him up, check him again in 7 days. If he was clean again, he would wait 7 more days. And then if he was still clean after 14 days, he got to go back to the people. But because it's obvious from day one this man has the illness, there's no reason to test him, no reason to wait. He knew it from day one. It is a chronic leprous disease in the skin of his body, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. And if the leprous disease breaks out in the skin, so that the leprous disease covers all the skin of the diseased person from head to foot, so far as the priest can see, then the priest shall look, and if the leprous disease has covered all of his body, he shall pronounce him clean of the disease. It has all turned white, and he is clean. But when the raw flesh appears on him, it shall be unclean. And a lot of this is harder for us to understand unless you maybe have a medical background. Probably I should be calling on some of y'all that know what you're talking about. But if you have an open wound, it's more dangerous. And so he says, if it has still that raw flesh, he's unclean. The priest shall examine the raw flesh and pronounce him unclean. Raw flesh is unclean, for it is a leprous disease. But if the raw flesh recovers and turns white again, then he shall come to the priest. Now, technically he's calling the priest, not coming to the priest, because he's been kicked out of society. So the priest would have to meet him somewhere that wasn't in the community to be able to look at him. But if the raw flesh recovers and turns white again, then he shall come to the priest. The priest shall examine him. If the disease has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce the diseased person clean. He is clean. If there is in the skin of one's body a boil, okay, now we've changed subjects. So the first thing we looked at was a swelling in the skin, something where your skin has swollen up. If the swelling shows a white hair and is raw, living flesh within it, the priest must immediately pronounce him unclean. If the swelling is simply a white spot without those other two signs, then he quarantines him for 7 days to observe him, just like we had seen in the previous passage for other leprosy. Now we're going to look at boils. Verse 18 to 23. Kind of like sometimes when we're discussing farming things, I need to rely on some of y'all. This medical stuff, if you have more medical knowledge than me, speak up. I would love to hear from someone that knows more about these things. I've studied it, but studying it and knowing it are two different things. If there is in the skin of one's body a boil and it heals, and in the place of the boil there comes a white swelling or a reddish white spot, then it shall be shown to the priest, and the priest shall look. If it appears deeper than the skin, and the hair has turned white, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a case of leprous disease that has broken out in the boil. But if the priest examines it, and there is no white hair in it, and it is not deeper than the skin, but has faded, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spreads in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a disease. But if the spot remains in one place and does not spread, It is a scar of the boil. The priest shall pronounce him clean. Excuse me, not unclean, clean. Okay, so next we looked at the boil. The first thing with the boil is it's a swelling or reddish white spot that develops in the same location where a boil has healed. So in other words, the boil has healed, now there's a swelling there. So they're trying to figure out, is this just a scar from the boil, or is there an illness that has developed? And so the priest will examine him, and if the spot is deeper than the skin, then you know immediately it's unclean. It's leprosy, if it's going deeper than just the external skin. If it's not deeper than the skin, they have to wait 7 days and re-examine him to see if it's spread. So it's no deeper than the skin, but you wait 7 days and now it's in multiple locations. You know it's leprosy. So he's unclean. A lot of this stuff is similar to the way we would treat things, except for we might not have to go as extreme today as quarantining people from one another, but sometimes you do. Even when you've got a very expensive medicine that's treating, you may have to wait 5 days before you go back to school or be around people, or gymnasiums. You're not allowed to go to a gym, or you're not allowed to go to a public shower during that time of healing. So there are a lot of similarities to the way we would heal things today. Notice, though, there is one thing that's never mentioned in chapter 13 and 14. None of this is mentioned how to medicate or treat these people. That's not the purpose of the passage. This is not a physician. This is the religious leader deciding if they can still come to tabernacle to worship. And if they need to be set aside from the community to keep the community healthy. This is not the medical doctor treating them. So there's no medical treatment that happens in any of these chapters. I'm not saying there wasn't medical treatment. I'm saying that's not the job of the priest. Yes, ma'am.
Do they have a specification of what I was wondering for areas where this is the boils, this is the leprosy, this is the, or did, you know, what I'm saying?
Yeah. You would think they would have to, wouldn't you?
You would.
Because those are different illnesses. When we think of Hansen's disease leprosy and leper colonies, they were all put in one location. But this is not one illness. This is not just leprosy. So you would think you would have to quarantine in different locations based on, these are the boily people, these are the bald people, these are the people, because if not, you could catch his illness during your time of quarantine. So I don't know of that, but it would make sense. It would make perfect sense that you, even in quarantine, you'd have to be quarantined only with people like your illness. Harley?
I was wondering, like myself, from my chemo treatments,
Yes.
I have no hair on my arms.
Yep.
But of course, they didn't have the chemo treatment back then. But
Yeah.
I suppose there are people who are hairless,
Yeah.
and I was wondering what they would do. They would find the white hairs in it.
Yes, that's true. We're going to look at baldness in a minute, and there was a way to check to see if it was natural baldness compared to sickness baldness. So I'm sure it was the same way, where they were looking for something specific in it to show it wasn't natural hairlessness, it was sickness hairlessness. A burn of the skin, verses 24 to 28, which, I mean, even today, burns are very dangerous because you can catch an infection. I'm looking at Jake, so I guess I'll just talk about Jake. You go to a hospital, you get a surgery, you get anything, and there's always risk of infection. Once somebody opens up your flesh, there's something could come in. So a burn, natural case for infection. When the body has a burn on its skin and the raw flesh of the burn becomes a spot, reddish white or white, the priest shall examine it. If the hair in the spot has turned white and appears deeper than the skin, then it's leprous disease. It is broken out in the burn, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a case of leprous disease. But if the priest examines it, and there is no white hair in the spot, and is no deeper than the skin, but has faded, and the priest has shut him up for 7 days, the priest shall examine him on the 7th day. If it is spreading in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a case of leprous disease. But if the spot remains in one place and does not spread in the skin but has faded, it is a swelling from the burn, and the priest shall pronounce him clean, for it is a scar of the burn. So a lot of these rules are extremely similar. There's a way to know it's immediately leprous, and there's a way to not know yet, so you wait 7 days to check again to see if it's leprous. The number 7, over and over and over. An infection on the head or on the chin. Verse 29 to 37. When a man or a woman has a disease on the head or the beard, the priest shall examine the disease. If it appears deeper than the skin and the hair in it is yellow, okay, this is different. What hair have we been looking for all along? White. This is a yellow and thin hair. Then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is an itch, a leprous disease of the head or the beard. And if the priest examines the itching disease, and it appears no deeper than the skin, and there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut up the person with itching disease for 7 days. Now we've seen a third thing to look for on this one. Yellow thin hair or black hair. And on the 7th day the priest shall examine the disease. If the itch has not spread and there is no yellow hair, and the itch appears to be no deeper than the skin, then he shall shave him. But the itch he shall not shave, and the priest shall shut up the person with itching disease for another 7 days. So cut off all the hair except for right around that potential illness, and check again in 7 more days. And on the 7th day the priest shall examine the itch, and if the itch has not spread in the skin and appears no deeper than the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him clean. And he shall wash his clothes, and he shall be clean. But if the itch spreads in the skin after his cleansing, then the priest shall examine him, and if the itch has spread in the skin, the priest shall not seek for the yellow hair. He is unclean. But if in his eyes the itch is unchanged and black hair has grown in it, the itch is healed, he is clean, the priest shall pronounce him clean. Okay, a little bit different rules here, but very similar rules. This time we're looking for yellowish hair, thinning hair, or a black hair. And there's a baldness clause. I don't remember reading that. If the person, the bald of the head or the beard. If a reddish white lesion appears there, he is examine it by the same criteria. If the lesion is not deeper than the skin, does not contain a black hair, so it's not growing again, he is clean. Now, bright spots. (38 to 39). When a man or a woman has spots on the skin of his body, white spots, or Arthur, do you have different than white spots in your translation? Bright spots. Bright spots are white spots. The priest shall look, and if the spots of the skin of the body are a dull white, it is leukoderma that is broken out in the skin. He is clean. Okay. So, if someone has bright spots, your immediate thought is, this is leprosy. But it could actually just be eczema. And so the skin rash has to be examined, and if that's all it is, it's non-contagious. So no fear of the eczema. This person is declared clean.
It's called a freckle.
A freckle. Yep. Freckle, ESV, leukoderma. I think this is New American Standard, eczema. All of which are definitely not contagious. So we don't have to worry about spreading freckles to people.
Can I tell you something funny in the middle of all of this?
Yeah.
Because I have that.
Yeah.
Bronchitis, eczema. And I was washing my bedclothes every day in the hottest water, taking hot showers, soaking up, drying off good.
Uh-huh.
And it just kept getting worse, and I had to go to a dermatologist, and you know what she told me?
What?
Stop being so hygienic. Exactly what she said.
Yeah. It was making it worse. Yep. Rosemary said she has almost this exact thing. And she was boiling sheets and washing and washing and washing, and the dermatologist said, you're washing too much. Stop washing so much. An infection on a bald head. Verse 40 to 44. If a man's hair falls out from the head, he is bald, he is clean. So baldness doesn't make you unclean, that's natural. If a man's hair falls out from his forehead, he has baldness of the forehead. He is clean. But if there is on the bald head or the bald forehead a reddish white diseased area, it is a leprous disease breaking out on his bald head or his bald forehead. Then the priest shall examine him. If the disease swelling is reddish white on the bald head or his bald forehead, likewise the appearance of leprous disease in the skin of the body, he is a leprous man, he is unclean. The priest must announce him unclean. His disease is on his head. So, pretty simple here, but good thing he put this in here, because think about how many guys would get kicked out of town if just every time you start getting bald forehead, you're gone, right? So, good thing that God put that distinction there. Now, here's what the consequences were, because really chapter 14 gives more. We haven't really got to what that means. We've just been figuring out, do you have it? So here's some of the consequences of leprosy, verse 45 to 46. The leprous person who has the disease shall wear torn clothes, let the hair of his head hang loose, and he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside the camp. So maybe that kind of answers your question. Maybe they're not even, one unclean person can't even live with another unclean person. So we're going to talk about shaving a lot in chapter 14, but we already mentioned a little bit earlier where that person had the patch. They would leave the illness and shave everything else. What were they not allowed to do when you had leprosy? They could not cut their hair. They had to walk around in ripped clothes. And if someone walks up to you, hurry and cover your face with a mask. Interesting. I loved it. Okay, I didn't love it. But I enjoyed, not that people died from COVID, but I enjoyed all the rules that kept getting made by our government, because every time I was like, that's Leviticus! That's Leviticus! You had to wear a face mask. If somebody walks close to you, cover your face. And you have to warn them, I'm sick, stay back. Stay 2 meters back, 6 feet away from me, right? So, yeah. COVID was just us reenacting Leviticus.
The only thing really consistent with any of that today is measles.
Yeah, measles. Good point. And you know what's funny? We brought it for just a tiny bit, and then politics killed it off as quickly as we brought it. But wearing face masks has been around for at least decades, probably hundreds of years in Asia and countries. Anytime you're sick, if you are not wearing a mask, that means you're being rude to your coworkers and to society. Every time you're having any type of cough or cold, immediately they put on masks, because that's showing their kindness to the rest of the city.
The problem is that unless you had an N95 mask, it wouldn't do you any good, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
People got COVID anyway.
Yeah, you're right. We were wearing, y'all were wearing way too cheap a mask for the purpose. Fortunately, I already had an N95 mask for smog, because so I was like, okay. And they're like, you can't wear that at work. They wanted to hand me one that was thin. And I'm like, no, I'm wearing one better than you're wearing, buddy. I'm not changing my mask. Mine is N95 smog mask. So it can definitely keep COVID. Harley?
My observation, though, I generally catch a cold twice a year.
Hmm.
And in those times that we were wearing masks, I never caught a cold.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it slowed down his normal. Arthur?
In reading the report from the churches in Togo, they have an orphanage named after the brides, and the kids were all sick, and 4 of them were in the hospital because they all had chicken pox.
Oh, yep. Yep.
It wasn't common with them, and they had no immunity to it.
Yep.
They all got it.
That's true. I mean, And that's what we have to be careful with, judging God's rules to these people. He knew these people better than we can know these people because we live in such a different time period in a different part of the world. If you want to be more understanding of what is happening here, go third world. Because Arthur's talking about chickenpox took out some of our missionary orphan kids. I mean, things like that aren't a joking matter when you're not in somewhere like America. Even small illnesses here are big illnesses somewhere else. Diarrhea kills more people than almost anything in the world.
And they didn't vaccinate for them either. I mean,
Yep.
Even when we had the people came across the border,
Yep.
they were catching measles and many other diseases that they weren't vaccinated.
Yeah, because they don't have the vaccines we do. It was mentioned that people that came across the border caught measles and things like that none of us catch anymore because they never had the vaccines that we all had.
Well, America has proved that with the Indian population or any smaller group that's not associated with a larger group.
Yep.
And they go in and a bunch get killed off because of that.
Yes, you're right. Killed off a lot of Native American tribes by being exposed to things that we carried that they hadn't been around before. Garments with leprosy. Okay. This is where I was saying we don't know which this is. Is it mold or is it a contagious illness that showed up on cloth and things that we may not even have today or in this part of the world? Verse 47 to 59. When there is a case of leprous disease in a garment, whether it is woolen or linen garment, in the warp or in the woof of linen or wool, I'll pause there. Years ago, I did a lot of study of warp and woof because I had no clue what I was talking about. And now I've been long enough, I barely know what I'm talking about. Do any of y'all know, any of you ladies, know what warps and woofs are? Okay, your warp is your string going this direction, longest, and your woof is the other one going this way. So it's talking about whether it's on the long string or horizontal or vertical. That's the way we'd say it today. So as you think about making a cloth where you're mixing up and down, up and down, up and down, across with your yarn or whatever when you're building this cloth, he's saying if it's in the horizontal string or if it's in the vertical string. Might be the way we would say it today. That makes sense? Okay. Verse 48. Or in the skin, or in anything made of skin, if the disease is greenish or reddish in the garment, or in the skin, or in the warp, or the woof, or any article made of skin, it is a case of leprous disease, and it shall be shown to the priest. The priest shall examine the disease and shut up that which has the disease for 7 days. He shall examine, notice this, what does he do for this? The same thing he did for humans. What's he do? He takes the cloth and shuts it up for 7 days. Okay, give me your coat. I'll hold on to it for 7 days, and then we've got to put it locked up in it so no one touches it. We can't afford for anyone to catch this illness. Same rules, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. Then he shall examine the disease on the 7th day. We were talking about last week, and I know one of y'all brought up God's favorite numbers. I think that might be the majority of the reason 7 is so important. But because he doesn't define that, my mind also goes to how often were you coming to worship? 7 days. So you better be examined before you come back to the tabernacle and are around hundreds of people. So maybe that's why the 7s are so important. We're going to get examined before we go into the community. 7 days. Okay, now you can have your coat back and come back into worship wearing it because we don't want it to touch 200 people that are going to catch your illness. So maybe 7 is also important because that's how often worship happens. Worship happens 7 days. If it has spread, if the disease has spread in the garment, in the warp, or in the woof, or in the skin, whatever the use be of the skin, the disease is a persistent leprous disease that is unclean. He shall burn the garment, or the warp, or the woof. So in other words, by saying or the warp or the woof means you can take apart the garment. So the woman could take the strings apart and save the part that wasn't leprous, while burning the part that was leprous. That's why he defines warp versus wolf. The wool or the linen, what verse was I in, guys? 52. And he shall burn the garment, the warp or the wolf, the wool, the linen, any article made of skin that is diseased, for it is a persistent leprous disease. It shall burn in the fire. And the priest examines the disease has not spread in the garment. So if it spread, what do? Burn whatever it's spreading on, whether it's leather, whether it's the warp, whether it's the wolf, whether it's the wool. If it's not spread after 7 days, in the warp or in the wolf or in the article made of skin, then the priest shall command that they wash the thing in which the disease, and he shall shut it up for another 7 days. All these types of illnesses were either 7 days, checked, and you go back to the community, or 7 days, checked, wait 7 more. So with clothing, it's 7, check, wash, wait 7 more. Boy, I wanted to cover a lot more than I covered today.
Hanging back to Sunday, though, or 7 days of worship and everything, doesn't necessarily hold true, I think, because what if it's on Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday or Friday, 7 days would still not fall on the worship day.
Yes. I was just wondering, I guess it depends on when you can call out the priest. Maybe the priest only had a certain day of the week that he checks everything, and so then 7 days later is Friday or whatever. So Saturday you're ready to go back to worship. That was my idea. I don't know. But it's interesting how 7 days is always the number.
I hadn't thought about it, but I think you're probably right. But speaking for myself, and I think it applies to a lot of people in here, when they quit working a regular schedule, if it wasn't for church, I wouldn't be sure what day it was, unless
Yeah.
you have access to a calendar.
Yeah.
But I can see in their case, that was the only Saturday was the day that they knew as a.
Yes. Yes, Arthur.
I don't know if they had very many clothes or not, they probably didn't, but I know how I felt. If I thought it had leprosy, I'd burn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then that wouldn't work out to a 7 day, would it?
Why is that?
If they got it on Wednesday or something and couldn't have it examined, then it was another, before it was examined, and then another 7 days. That's more than 7 days.
That could be true. That was just my idea I came up with. I could always be wrong.
And I may be way up.
I was just thinking there might be a day, let's say it's Friday, that they examine all people with leprosy, all garments with leprosy. That way the next Friday that person can come back to worship if it's time, or their garment can come back. That way no one's walking into worship with leprosy and spreading it to everybody. But we're not told that. That was just a guess. But 7. And the priest shall examine the diseased thing after it has been washed. If the appearance of the diseased area has not changed, though the disease has not spread on it, it is unclean. So if he waits 7 days and it doesn't spread, but it still looks like leprosy, it's got to be treated like leprosy. You shall burn it in the fire, whether it is wrought, is on the back or on the front. That's interesting. If God didn't specify that, we'd be like, well, it's just on the back. Nobody's going to touch that part. Can I keep this? I really need it. Nope. Whether it's on the back or the front, you got to burn it, even if nobody else is going to touch it but yourself. But the priest examines, and if the diseased area has faded after it has been washed, he shall tear out of the garment or the skin or the warp or the woof. Then if it appears again in the garment, in the warp or the woof, or in any article made of skin, it is spreading. You shall burn it with fire, whatever has the disease. So if it fades after washing, you only have to tear off that one part of the garment, because garments are that valuable. You didn't have a lot of clothes, and what you had, you worked hard for. So you just tore out that one part. But then if it spreads later, you tear out that part, and now all of a sudden you see it somewhere else in the garment. The whole garment's got to be burned. Shall then be washed but the garment or the warp or the woof or any article of skin from which the disease departs, when you've washed it, shall then be washed a second time and be clean. So you wait 7 days, you wash it. If it stops spreading or if it stops looking as dark, You wait 7 more days, wash it again, and now you're able to wear it in public. This is the law for a case of leprous disease in a garment of wool or linen, either in a warp or in a woof, or in any article made of skin, to determine whether it is clean or unclean. I really thought I was going fast, and we only covered the 1 chapter tonight. All right, what we covered last week then, I will hit again briefly. Is sin like contagious leprosy? Yes, it is. Why is that, Harley?
Because it can kill you.
Yes. Sin can kill you just like leprosy can. What else do y'all think? It is contagious. Because not just being close to someone, but the influence of someone being around you. And I really think of our example is very contagious. The example of, I saw someone do this, I look up to that person is a Christian, or that person is a leader in the church, I can do it too. What did you say? Anyone? Someone over here said something. Same thing? Okay. All right. Well, next week, Leviticus 14, I'm going to try to go as fast, if not faster, is also on leprosy. But it's on specifically, what is the process of cleansing him? What sacrifices does he have to offer? Then chapter 15, and that's where I'm really planning on getting into also next week, is when a male or a female has a bodily discharge and becomes unclean from that. Thank you for your time. Let's not go spread leprosy of sin to other people.